This is the Transparency Podcast Show.
I come and I sit back down on the bed and I start shaking, and I didn't really know what was going on. And I asked them, I said, did you test anything? Did you test anything? And they said, oh, we couldn't test anything for you. It's already been too late.
What?
And yeah,
Really?
no, we were very confused about that as well. Unfortunately, that same hospital doesn't do testing for,
Serious?
right. It's
crazy.
It's
What kind of
crazy because
hospital
you would
is this?
think this area that is so, pride friendly and all of this, that the resources would be there. But unfortunately, the hospital you're sent to isn't even trained to be able to handle this. You have to be lucky enough for a nurse to, it has to be like a violent rape for them to really notice that you need to have a referral. And as I started shaking and they were telling me, oh, there's nothing we can do, I already was feeling so dysphoric about my body. I mean, as a trans person, being in the hospital is my worst fear, especially passed out.
Okay, so they made a conclusion
Yeah, that I was
that
just drunk.
no, I mean, in the hospital they didn't make a conclusion you were sexually assaulted.
Not at all. But here's the crazy thing. So after I asked the nurse, I said, can I get some water? And she said she's going to get me water. She never gets me water. My wife then goes and says, hey, he needs some water. And I'm just starting to kind of shake there from anxiety or from whatever they gave me.
Yes.
The doctors that said most likely it was ketamine that they gave me. And my body was just in such shock. I just wanted to go home. And all I could say was just, I want to go home. I want to go home. And the nurse didn't even ask me anything. She just looked at me and, oh, you want to go home? Okay, go pay your copay right over there and you can go home.
Wow.
And, I'm still in shock. My wife, I mean, I've never been to the ER. This is not something that we knew how to even handle. We weren't even thinking. We were just trusting that everybody was doing the right part. And that, all I needed to do was know that I was stable and I was okay and everybody else was going to do their job. And I just had to worry about being okay.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I put my clothes back on that were hanging off the gurney in a plastic bag. And my clothes were sopping wet down to my socks. And I said to my wife, so I said to my wife, I said, do you think that I sweated this hard? That when I passed out, that maybe, and then she goes, but it's down in your socks. And then and I was also wearing a bomber jacket. The water was on the outside of the bomber jacket. So we were like, and my clothes were completely drenched all the way from head to toe. And it was so confusing because why were my clothes wet? And I had a nurse actually tell me, well, if you were in the ER and they are administering you and you're passed out, most of the time they cut through your clothes. They don't slowly remove your clothes.
Yeah.
My clothes had no damage to them at all, as if someone just kind of gently slipped them off. There was no rips to my jeans. There was no rips to my shirt, not even my collar. There was nothing out of the ordinary. There was this sticky substance that was on my neck and my chest that I felt. And then there was some substance that was in my genital area and substance that was on my chest.
Yeah.
Whoever assaulted me attempted to remove my grafted nipple through my top surgery. I'm still actually trying to find a surgeon right now because unfortunately through the victims fund, a lot of these surgeons are afraid they're actually not going to be paid out properly by the victims fund. So I'm actually having to fight to find a surgeon, even though I have an approved application to pay, $70,000 worth of surgery. I can't even find a surgeon to take care of that.
Yes.
My genitals, unfortunately, it looks like they pulled on the left labia to the point where now it permanently hangs out in a way that has never done that before. When I got home, I started to bleed. And I started to bleed. And at the time, I wasn't taking testosterone. So I knew that my cycle was coming, but it wasn't for about 2 weeks. But I do know that if I have any kind of penetrative sex, especially because I don't do it often, it'll trigger my period to come sooner. So I was bleeding and I was so confused and I felt this moisture here and this moisture there. And I'm sitting there and I'm ruminating about the fact that, well, no, the hospital would have known. They would have taken care of it. They would have told me. They would have something. Would have this. They would have that. And something kept telling me, no, something's off, something's off, something's off. My body was feeling weird. it was almost like my body was numb from here down because I was in
And this
such
is
shock.
already after you went home.
This is when I went home. It only took me about 25 minutes to get home from the hospital. And I'm sitting in the bathroom and I call my best friend Lucky and I say, I've been raped and I need help and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so unique because, I mean, I've helped community for years and usually I
Right.
do know what to do. But in that situation, I was so overwhelmed. And he helped me. He told me to go to a clinic so that I can get Plan B so that I can, prevent any kind of pregnancy. He helped me get PEP medications to prevent any kind of HIV infection. I had to take the medication for about 28 days. It made me extremely sick. I couldn't walk for about 2 weeks properly.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah. And then
Crazy.
I slowly and surely started healing my body. I stayed home and I went back to work only about a month and a half later, back on the clock. Because for me, the job that I had at the time was an STI clinic, and it meant so much to me to show up, to really create those resources for people and really show them that empathy that I didn't receive at the hospital. And I did a really good job so much so that there were people on Yelp that were actually reviewing me on an STI clinic, which I don't think anybody has ever reviewed an STI clinic on Yelp, but they were like, Shane is amazing. He took care of me.
Yes.
And that made me so proud and doing that work. And some other stuff that I've worked on was working with the city because I do sit on the Transgender Advisory Board. I do have a relationship with the council members. When the incident did happen, I reported it directly to the city. After that, it was discovered. Well, there's a little more. I don't want to skip ahead, but basically after I went to the clinic and I got my Plan B and my PEP medication, I went directly to the sheriff's station in West Hollywood to report the crime.
Right.
I walked in. I'm still bleeding at this point. It's only been, maybe for 24 hours or not even, maybe 12 hours since the incident has happened. And that deputy refuses to allow me to make a police report.
What?
Yeah.
What is it? What did he say? What is
it? Was a she. I mean, the thing is I don't want to disclose the name so much because I have to be careful with that. But what I can tell you is that I walked into that office and I asked for a rape kit. And that detective said, rape kit? You don't need a rape kit.
Really?
Yeah. And it wasn't because, I don't know really what it was because I still to this day, there's been explanations afterwards where the city now has gone into not quite an investigation, but more of like a question of why wasn't that report taken? And the excuse from the sheriffs were it was an overtime officer that didn't have proper training. But here's the crazy thing. So that same lieutenant or captain was pulled back into another meeting by a city council member and said, what's the difference between the training for sheriffs that are overtime and the sheriffs that are not? And they couldn't give an answer.
Wow.
They couldn't give an answer. So why wasn't I allowed to make a police report when I was assaulted?
Yeah.
And through that experience, I started to turn over every stone that I could in the city to start finding out what was going on in this system.
Right.
And in that discovery, the sheriffs sent in a report to the city, and that report indicated that 100% since 2016, 100% of sexual assaults and druggings that happened within the city, none of them brought charges.
Wow. That's crazy.
100%. I mean, in the history of any community worker, I mean, in any industry, nobody says 100%. Everybody says, oh, it's a 99.9% guarantee. These statistics are 100%.
Yeah.
So something's going on.
Yeah,
And, I've really learned that there's a system in place that is purposely keeping folks from really reporting and understand what's really going on.